welcome or welcome back to the Emily Knits podcast channel. My name's Emily, obviously, and I am a knitter and crocheter based in the north of Nottinghamshire in the UK, close to Sherwood Forest, where I live with my other half and our 2 dogs. Thank you very much for being here, for coming back to see me again. This week we've just got another traditional format podcast. I've got a bit of a less prolific week this week, 2 weeks, sorry. We've got a single finished object, some whips, a little bit of acquisitions to talk about, a couple of new cast-ons. Yeah, a couple of new cast-ons. And a little bit of yarn-related life update at the end of the video. First off, just thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with me. I've got a nice cup of coffee, so if you haven't got a drink, but you would like one, please feel free to go get one. Grab a project, and I hope you enjoy spending a little bit of your time with me. Before we get into the podcast content, I just wanted to talk about what I'm wearing. This is not knitwear underneath. I wish it was. I wish I could make a pattern that looked like this. I know there are some camo style patterns out there, but what I'm wearing on top obviously is knitwear. So this is the Basic Bee cardigan by Beckie Designs. I finished this last year. I'll put in some B-roll to show what it looks like standing up because it's fairly long, but I've not got space here to stand up and show you. So this is a all over stockinette cardigan, knit in drops wish. I don't know if you can see on camera, this looks really good. In person it's really tatty, and it's the yarn that's causing the problems, not the pattern. Beckie's designs are generally, I like Beckie's designs, but they fulfill a certain purpose. So she does really basic, she does basic designs, hence Basic Bee. She does the Basic Bee hoodie, the Basic Bee cardigan. They're fairly simple. I would say they're definitely beginner friendly, but they look good. They're well explained, they're detailed, they look good. And this was no exception. So I tested this for Beckie last year. Like I said, the design is lovely, but you can see, if I come up closer, you can see the pilling. And in person, this looks really tatty, which is a shame because I love it. This was the recommended yarn for the pattern. This is Drops Wish in the shade, I think it's just dark grey, and it's lovely. It's one of my favourites for putting on and being cosy around the house when I want to be, and it looks quite nice over the top of other items, not knitwear. And yeah, I'll put in some B-roll. It's got all twisted rib details on the hems, cuffs, and this big shawl collar. It knit up really quickly because it's on like 8-9mm needles, and I did think I was going to do them in every colour. I really like this detail, the way she's done the increases. This is a knit, I think it's a knit from the back, but the way she's done it creates a really nice, almost clean raglan, and I really like that. I think it looks really, really nice, this detail there. And then yeah, the twisted stitches on the shawl collar. I don't know how long it's going to last with this on because it was cold this morning in the UK. We've had a little bit of a cold snap, but actually the sun's come out now. It's a beautiful blue skies, hence the lighting's a bit better today than it was last time I filmed. I don't know how long this is going to last because it's really quite warm, so we'll see. But that's what I'm wearing before we move into anything else. So one thing, I've got one finished object this week, much less prolific week than when I came last time, like I said. And it's not actually any of the things that you might think. This is a completely new thing. So most of you, if you watched the last episode, will remember last time I had finished this. I'd cast this on out of nowhere. Hooked this on, do you call it hooked on with a crochet item? I'd cast it on out of nowhere and I'd loved it. It brought so much joy. I'd got a lot of satisfaction from using up scrap yarns in my stash, and it had gone really quickly. And it's actually had a slightly different purpose than I thought it would have when I made it. So what I'd thought with this, let me bring it over, if you didn't watch the other one, what I'm talking about is this gigantic scrap crochet. I think the pattern calls it a basket, but let's be honest, this thing it's a bucket. It's gigantic. It's absolutely massive. It fits so much stuff in it. And I just used single crochet stitches, yarns that were in my stash, like acrylics and things, and I just crocheted until I ran out of a colour, and then I changed colour and added another one in. Multiple strands held together. And what I'd said this was going to be was like a scrap basket near my work desk upstairs, between my work desk and my yarn stash, so that any little bits of things like, other than fingering weight scraps, which I intend to make sort of a scrappy blanket or something from, DK weight, Aran weight, acrylic, anything like that, the scraps for that would go in here. And then I could just pick from it and use it as in Scrappy projects as I wanted to. That's not how this has ended up being used. I'm telling you this because it's relevant to what I've made next. This has basically followed me around the house as like a project bucket. Like I say, it's not a project bag, it's too big. It is much bigger than my head. It is massive. It's got other projects in it. It's got, like I say, it's got my crochet scraps in of things that I want to use up. But it's also got, a crochet project. It's also got a crochet project in it that I'll talk about when we get onto whips. But it's followed me around the house. It's basically been like, I'll use this here, I'll take it with me. Knitting projects has been in it, needles have been in it, my interchangeable needle sets. I've even used it to bring things like my phone and stuff and laptop down from upstairs if I'm working down here. So it's been really useful. And because it's followed me around the house, it's been a lot more visible to my other half. And he said the other day, could he have one? He said he had things in he's got a hobby space in our house. One of the spare rooms is his hobby space. And he said there was loads of stuff in his room that he could use that for, that he would put in there, that it would be nice to have one. So I thought I would make him another one. Again, oh, there's a stitch marker in it. Using up more of my stash, I gave it to him with stitch marker attached. Using up more of my remnants in my stash, also making something from him, which I love doing, and making something that's a utility. For this one, I was a little bit more considered with the colours. I didn't think he'd fancy one that had bright pinks and oranges and things in it. He's much more greys, greens, blues, and I had quite a lot of those in my acrylic leftover stash. So this is what we came up with. It is exactly the same size, well, pretty much exactly the same size as the other. I didn't really count stitches and rows and things like that. The pattern is, I think it's by Cintia Gonzalez. It's free pattern on Ravelry. It's the same ones I used last time, but I will link it below and I'll pop the name up here and some pictures. And it's more of a recipe. She tells you how to start and how to crochet and increase around the bottom so you make a circular base. And she gives you some ideas of how big to make it. But then she tells you, once you've got to the size you want, how to change to going onto the sides. And then she gives some recommendations of how big you should make it, but she sort of leaves it up to you to make it as tall as you want. And then she gives you instructions on how to make the handles. So I made this to the same size as I made the other one, and I kept lining it up against it and matching it up against it. This one, I think, actually has some wool in it. I'm trying to remember now. I think there are some little bits of wool in it, but for the most part, it's, again, it's acrylic and it's used up loads of my stash. Let me just bring this a bit closer and show you some of the colours. So I did exactly the same again, 9mm crochet hook. This is going to have to come off, it's too hot. 9mm crochet hook. Multiple strands of predominantly DK weight, I think it is in here. There's some that are technically Aran. This blue in the bottom was Karen Simply Soft, I think. And that apparently is an Aran weight, but it worked just exactly the same as the DK in here. I think this was a DK weight, this dark green. The greys and the blues are all DK weight because they were from the same project, and the white. And it's used up so much. It's used up loads. And again, look how big it is. This is really, really fun. I honestly think I might make another one, but I might intentionally choose the colours. So there's a couple of things I want to make in this same kind of, I would say style. It's not really a style, is it? It's single crochets with multiple strands of yarn held together. Single crochets in US terms, I should say. Yeah, US single crochets, I should say that. I've always learned with US terms, and for whatever reason they make more sense to me, because this just seems like a single crochet to me, because you do one loop. If you crochet, that'll make some sort of sense to you. So I will always refer to US terms, and I forget to say that when I'm talking about crochet, so I probably should make a note of that. There's a couple of things that I think, this is my only effort this week, so we're going to go into whips, but I'm going to talk a bit about plans for things I want to make at the moment as well. There's a couple of things I want to make in this same sort of, like I say, style. It's not really a style, is it? It's just single crochets. I talked last week about wanting to make a rug, which I have started. I'll show you that in a minute. for up in my room upstairs in a gap where the dog sleeps quite a lot. So instead of putting blankets down for him to sleep on, to have something that stays down there and that can just catch the dog hair and can be, if he wants to dig on it, it's fine. It's acrylic, it's not going to hurt it. So that is definitely one, and that's already underway, and that is going to be a purely Scrappy project. I'm not bothered about colours. I'm not going to pick particular things. I'm just going to go with whatever I think looks nice for the next one. There's a couple of other things I think I might make, but actually curate the colours, go and get some acrylic colours for this. So I think I might make another one of these. So like I mentioned, this one, my original one, has been with me everywhere. It's come downstairs. It spent a lot of time downstairs. The thing is, we got a new sofa last week. We've really struggled in this room, which is our living room, to make it feel cohesive and make it feel like somewhere we want to be. And part of that has been that we've been using an old sofa that we inherited that just didn't fit with the rest of the room. And we finally, back end of last year, we went and ordered a new sofa. It arrived last weekend, finally. And with that and a rug and some blankets and things, we've been able to turn it into a much more cohesive living space. We've got some fake plants up here that you're not going to be able to see, but if I just... We've got some fake plants to bring some greenery in. And very much the room is very much greens, greys, blues. There's some little neutral tones in there as well, some bits of beige and mustard and things like that. Excuse this blanket that's sitting here that is very much not those tones. This doesn't go with that. And whilst I'm not precious about it, particularly when we've just put so much effort into making this room feel how we want to, I thought maybe having one of these so that this does stay upstairs. And this does, you okay there? Don't know if that's picking up. Time for a good itch. Whilst this then does stay upstairs like I intended it to, and it fulfills the purpose that I expected it to fulfill, but I make one in the greys and greens and things that fit in the room, and it stays down here and it fulfills the purpose it's been fulfilling, which is acting as a big project bucket that sits next to the sofa. So that is a potential. The other thing that I want to make that my other half mentioned would be good is we've got behind where I'm filming here, and what's giving me all the natural light is some big sliding doors that go out into the garden. And that's where obviously the dogs get let out to do toilet and everything like that. And then when they come back in, we don't have a doormat or anything like that. So they come back in with wet paws, we come back in with wet feet, and we bring in stuff from the outside. And it's straight onto carpet. So we need a doormat, but rather than buying one, I thought we thought, Christian actually had the idea, I thought we could make one. We had the idea that I could make one like this. So I think I'm going to do exactly that. But again, we're going to go and pick some colours, and it'll be greys and greens and things like that to go in the room. Maybe a little bit of some sort of beige to bring in some neutrals and stuff like that. And that will probably this weekend, probably. Work phone is somewhere going off. Day when I'm filming is Friday, so we'll probably go and do that this weekend, or I might go do that on my own, pick some yarn and get that sorted, because currently we're using an old cushion cover that we no longer want, and it's not meant for that, so it's not absorbing stuff, it's not very rugged, it's knackered, and yeah, I'd just like to get that in place and again make it feel even more cohesive in here. So that's a future yarn plan. Whilst we're on the conversation about crochet, I'd said I was going to do a crochet rug, and I did actually start that this time. Again, cast on, hook on. So this is where we're at. Let me try not to pull all my stitches out. This is, again, very scrappy. Which side is the side with the tails? That side. Let's show you the side that looks slightly better. I'm going to shut up so I can put this in front of my face for a sec. Big. It's quite big. Looks like a little, I don't know what it looks like, bath towel, something like that. So I started this, and I can't even really tell you what I did, because I didn't count stitches or anything like that. I chained however many. I kept chaining, and what I did was I was chaining again with a 9mm hook and with multiple yarns together. Chained until I thought it looked about right, and I was in the room where I was going to put it, so I put the chain, stretched the chain along the gap. Right, okay, it needs a little bit more, a little bit less, and I kept adjusting it until I got it where I was. When I was happy with it, I turned around and started single crochet, and that's all I've done. And I've done exactly the same. I've kept going until a yarn's gone, and then I've added another one in. I've got up here, and I have started curating. It isn't the word. It's not that complex. It's not that deep. But I've started choosing to cut some of the yarns and switch them out sooner. So this, like this pinky purple particularly, you can see it goes quite a long way up. And I've actually got a lot left of that. Where is it? I've still got a lot left of that, and I was concerned if I kept going it would create a big block. It starts somewhere here, yeah, here. So I was worried it would create this big block that would look really different, and I don't want big blocks. I want it to be a bit more variable. It's really hard to show. So there's some blues, there's some interesting yarns in here, and I was going to talk about some of these because this isn't all acrylic. There is some other ones in here. There's some Stylecraft Grace in the bottom of here, which I talked about in my yarn stash tour video. I think it's a mohair nylon wool, no, mohair acrylic wool blend from Stylecraft. It is mostly acrylic with a bit of mohair and I think a bit of more wool, but I had some left from a jumper I made a couple of years ago. So that's gone in there, and that gives it this almost, I don't think you can see, it's got a bit of a haze at the bottom. Oh, you can up here. It's got a bit of a haze, and that's what's that given that. There is also some, the orange here is some Drops Nepal. This was a little scrap of some hand dyed from Third Vault yarns I had left. This sort of bright blue that's just popping through in there. There's not much of it, there wasn't much, so it's a few rows. There is some, where is it? Oh, it is there, you just can't see it very well. You can see it better up here. This purpley pinky that's popping out was some Malabrigo Rios that I had left over that I'd had in my stash for, God, probably 4 years, 3-4 years. It was like a third of a ball that was left that I didn't know what else to do with. I never really know what to do with Malabrigo Rios because according to the ball band, I'm pretty certain, and certainly according to what you see online, it's worsted or Aran weight. I don't think it is. I would say it's a light DK. Anyway, that's fine. The purpley pink in here was a, I think you can see that purpley pink. The purpley pink in here is a mystery skein I got from Pigment and Ply, DK weight. There's some mohair in there with that. And then, yeah, we've gone into some, these are more acrylics. The purple that I mentioned, there's some Rowan. Is it Rowan? It's not Rowan. I think it's Sirdar something tweed. It's like felted tweed. The Rowan version of it is felted tweed. The Sirdar one's called something slightly different, but there's like a purpley tweed in there. And then the lighter purple, this one that I showed, is some woolly knit. They're Aran weight cone in the shade Lupin. So there is wools in this as well, is my point that I'm trying to make there. There is some, somewhere in there, there's some of this, which is some Drops Baby Marina. So there is wools in this as well. And it's creating a nice sturdy, it's not got a lot of give to it, this. It's nice and sturdy. And this is going to be a rug, basically. It's exactly what it is. And again, the projects that I'm doing where I'm using up stash are giving me so much satisfaction because it feels so good to be clearing some of that stuff out and to just feel like I've got a manageable amount in there. I didn't realise how much it was bothering me until I've started to work through it. And I feel much better for doing that. So yeah, gonna keep pushing on that this year. I thought what I might do, what I did realise through doing this is quite a lot of those acrylic scraps weren't on Ravelry. So those stats I gave, some of them were, some of them weren't, but those stats that I gave at the end of that stash tour, stash reorganising video that I did, they're not correct because they weren't all there. Some stuff was on there that had been used up, some stuff wasn't on there that needed to be. So I thought what I'd do, once I've finished all these scrappy projects particularly, is go through my stash again and make sure everything is on Ravelry. If that could be of interest, if anybody is interested in how you do that on Ravelry, how I organise things, I'm not the biggest like expert on Ravelry at all. I would say if you're looking for somebody who really uses Ravelry and who has created some fantastic videos on it, then Venetia of The Woolly Worker is very, I'd say she's very detail oriented, she's very process driven, or she comes across like that, and she really likes using Ravelry to talk about things like that. So she has some fantastic videos. But if it could be of interest when I do that, let me know down below and I'll film it and I'll put it up on YouTube when I go through and weigh everything and add everything on. I will at the very least give some updated amounts. And I thought what I'd then do is maybe every couple of months do an updated, this is what I've used up in my stash, and really make an aim this year of getting some stuff down in my stash and having a bit more of a curated stash. The stuff that's in there is stuff that I want and I've chosen, rather than just scraps of old stuff that I don't know what to do with. So yeah, that's my scrappy project. Now we'll move into some actual proper knitting projects. some things haven't had a lot of work on, and there's a reason why. So I'll show you the reason why first. Let me get this out of the way. So you may remember last time I talked about some test knits that I was doing. One of which was for the Irene Sweater for Journey Through Yarn. Please don't lose stitches. And I think when I showed it to you last time, so this is 2 weeks ago I filmed, I just joined under the arms. And I basically have done not much else other than work on this. I say that, but I look around at the other things I've worked on. I've put a lot of time into working on this, and I wanted to have this finished for today. The fact that I'm not wearing it should tell you that I haven't got it finished yet, but I got really quite close. So this is where we are at. We have full body, collar has been added now, full body and one entire sleeve. And I've picked up for the second one. If I just, that's the trick, isn't it? Doing that with it. No. So yeah, I've picked up for the second sleeve this morning. I finished the first sleeve yesterday. I'd hoped I would get it done a bit quicker, but I didn't quite get it done as quick as I wanted to. So that is where we're at. Let me just pop this on for you and show you. I was trying not to pull any needles off. Oh, that's going to pull the stitches off. Okay, I'll be careful. It's pulling stitches off. So far it's just stockinette, so I can pick them up easy as well. Enough. Yeah, there's some stitches gone. Okay. So this is where we're at. Excuse the fact that it doesn't sit very well over this jumper. This is not how I would wear it, obviously. And this is not going to stay on long because this combo is really warm. So this is where we're at. Let me see if I can just hop up and show you a little bit better. Look at that texture. So we've got a folded collar that's sewn down on the inside. Picked up for the sleeve, which is what here, and then it's also got, I'll pop in some B-roll because I'm not going to be able to get high enough to show you, but it's got a split hem. And this is, that colour is showing really well there actually, with a dog hair right there and there. I'm not going to start that, I'll be there for days. This is Cascade 220 in the shade Pumpkin Spice. Yeah, and this is absolutely going to be done by the next time I speak to you. I'm anticipating this is going to grow quite a lot in blocking because my swatch did, and this is supposed to be quite oversized on me. I have got gauge. This is quite tight fitting, particularly the sleeve is quite tight fitting. So I am anticipating some growth during blocking. But this is where we're at. This has been really enjoyable. Let me just take this off because it's too hot. Oh dear, a lot of stitches have come off. Give me 2 minutes. Let me just try and fix this. Big chunk of stitches have come off the needles. Whilst I'm picking up stitches, I will talk about what I intend to do moving forward a little bit. So one of the things I intend to do, and I can't do it this week because I haven't got any finished objects that I can actually do this with, is talk about what things have cost me to make. I think it's interesting and it's important, and it is one of the things that I'm quite passionate about as a knitter, as somebody who is in this community, and as somebody who wants to share what she's making online. There we go. Needs sorting, but at least they're back on the needles. Who wants to share what she makes online, and who, obviously, like I mentioned in my first episode, I am a plus size I mentioned in my first episode, I am a plus size knitter. Sorry, I'm sat on a ball of yarn. And quite often, cost of things matters to me because I'm plus size. I generally knit a 2XL for my size, or a size 5, 6, FG, whatever that corresponds to, whatever they choose to call it in their patterns. I'm also 6 foot tall, which usually means I've got to add length to the body. Quite often means I have to add length to the sleeve. And all this can mean that I can spend quite a lot on a knitting pattern or a knitting project. I think I mentioned in the first episode, petite knit is a particular bugbear of mine. Not that I've got a downer on her or anything, but this is just the one that I use as an example because everybody's heard of petite knit. Some designers, petite knit being an example, I have costed up for myself to knit one of her designs. I can't remember which one it was, maybe the balloon sweater, something like that. in my size. And if I was to use the recommended yarn, which was 3 separate strands of different things held together to get gauge, it was going to be well over £300. And I probably could afford that. I would have to, like, that would be my expenditure for the month. That would be my treat to myself for the month. Nothing else can be paid. It has to be bare minimums. But I could, but I'm never going to, because I do not want to spend £300 on a jumper. I just don't. I pick up the dog and he pulls a stitch, or I spill something down it, or I get it mucky. I'd never wear it. I'd never wear it. So something that is very important to me is cost, and using cost-friendly materials, being able to access them, and you know, talking about that is important. So I thought what I would do, I can't do it with this one yet, although I can give you a rough idea, because I know how much yarn I've got left, just to talk about how much things have actually cost me to make in my size. So this one I'm knitting in size F, which is fairly middle of the road actually for this pattern. It's fully size inclusive. It's got a really good size range. The designer is Journey Through Yarn. This is her first ever pattern that she's releasing. She has an Irene slipover in testing, so if you like this design but you don't want to knit the whole all over sweater, there's a slipover coming as well. And Cascade, I think, is actually the recommended yarn, Cascade 220. And I can put on screen some figures for what I don't want to do. Is, I think it is the Woolly Worker again who does it, where she calculates exactly how much yarn she's used and how much that would have cost her. I don't like that as much, just for my own, like, because I can't buy a third of a ball or 20 meters of a ball. You've got to buy a full ball. So I'd rather know how much it's actually cost me to, or how much it would cost me to get that amount of yarn. I have, for this, out of the amount I bought initially, I've got one more skein left and this amount of a single ball. So I think I'm going to crack into this next skein. I'm pretty certain for the sleeve. I'm not going to get one sleeve out of this. I think I'm going to need this for the next skein. So I can tell you how much I spent on this, because it's the full amount of yarn that I bought. To be able to have enough to do the length, I added some length. I've done a middle size. And I can put, you know, I can work out once it's finished how much length I've added. I can work out how much length I've added and tell you that on screen, just for full transparency. But I'm going to use the entirety of what I ordered, because I would need to crack into this skein. So if I wanted to add that length and do it again, I would need to order this many skeins. So I can tell you how much this cost me in total. I think it's probably going to be around the £50 mark off the top of my head. Watch it be more than that. But I think that's something I'm going to continue doing moving forward, particularly with finished objects, is talk about how much it's cost and things like that, because I think it's important. It's something I like, and it's something that I want to continue doing. So yeah, that was a little aside just to mention that. Moving briefly on to another project that I talked about last time. In fact, we'll go on to this one first. All over the place today. I'm going to move into this one quickly because I've not made much progress on it, because I've been really focusing on the Irene. So the other test net I'm working on at the moment is the Leo's cabled sweater for Emily Chen. That's a decent shot for once. I've not done much on this since we last spoke. I've probably done about an inch, so I'm not going to show it in too much detail. But this is an all over cabled sweater with, I think, quite modern cables, like I said last time. It's got these big sweeping cables and these ones here, and then these big blocks of wide rib in the middle that sort of break it up, and I think it looks really lovely. This is a fairly cost-effective one actually. This is being knit in Drops Charisma in the shade Light Oak. This is one of the recommended yarns in the pattern. She's done a sample in, I think it might be Rowan Felted Tweed held with a strand of mohair, which looks beautiful but much more expensive. But she also has an option in Drops Charisma. I can never help myself but sniff this. It smells so sheepy, it's so good. I don't know why. It's like that. For me, this is a segue. For me, there's a level of sheepy. If it's too sheepy, I can't do it. It's too much. But this is the right level of sheepiness. If you know, you know. So this is where we're at. And yeah, I can't wait to have this finished. This has a longer deadline on it. However, I'm going to talk at the end about the fact that we're going on a holiday and the deadline is just after we come back. So I really do need to get some work done on this before we go. And I can't talk about cost of this yet because I don't know how much I'm going to use. But Drops Charisma is cost effective anyway and fairly regularly goes on sale. So very cost effective yarn, 100% wool. and I really rate it. Actually, this is my second time using it for a project, and I think it's really nice. This is the shade Light Oak. So that's that for now. Next project that also hasn't had much done it is, last week I talked about my Melange Collar at quite a lot of length, so I'm not going to go into huge details about this. My first one was a test knit for, so this is a design by Lauren of Work.knits. I'll put links and everything below. My first one was a test knit for her. The design is now out. You can go get it. It is beautiful. I've worn it so much. And I knit my first one, I'll put a picture up here. I knit my first one in some Drops Nepal in the shade Deep Ocean, which is a 65% alpaca, 35% wool blend. So it's very luxurious. It's got a really nice drape to it. It's got some halo and some fuzz to it. And it's in a lovely deep blue teal colour. And I really enjoyed knitting that, so much so that I cast on another one, because it was a really nice project to have, just sort of a mindless project. And also it's really good for using up scraps. I mentioned last time, it's not really scraps, it's leftover balls that you don't know what to do with. I mentioned last time that Lauren recommends in the pattern 300 to 350 metres of yarn. One sec. And I said I wasn't sure. I'd used around 200, so quite a lot less. And I wasn't sure if that was just me, but looking at the other testers' projects on Ravelry, most of them are around 200 to 250. So actually, you can get one out of less. You can get one out of quite a lot less, which means that this then becomes really, really good for things that you might have left over in stash. And I said I was almost doing a bit of a test, because what I'm making this out of is some Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in the shade Oatmeal Melange, which was left over from Christian's Selbu coat that I made on that while I think on. I mentioned last week that I was having a problem with the buttons, and loads of people really kind of commented and said, don't order new buttons, just stitch around the buttonhole. So I'm going to try that. I will report back. He really wants to wear it, so I'm going to try that and report back. Thank you very much for all your suggestions. So yeah, I had like 1.75 balls left of this, which worked out at, I think, probably bang on 200 yards or somewhere like that. And I said last time I was most way through the first one, but I had an entirely full other ball left. I did have to break into the other ball somewhere around here, I think, when I was doing the neck shaping. I've done all the back, and it, like I mentioned last time, you've got these lovely twisted rib details. And then you do some shaping around the neck, you knit down the front, and then you go back and you pick up for the collar. So I've got the front to finish, the front sort of bib piece. So if I can pop it, I can pop it on, of course I can. Smooth, very smooth. So you knit down the front. I've got a bit more to go on this, and then you go back up and pick up the collar. And yeah, it's really nice and stretchy because of the yarn, and I think this is going to be really lovely. But I've done all that, and I've cracked into the second ball, but I've got all this left to go. This is still fairly solid, so I've got more than enough. I think I'm going to be absolutely fine. So again, using up some stash, very pleased with that. This could be made out of 2 balls of Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool. So again, I'll pop on the screen. I ordered these from knit.co.uk, and I feel like they were about £7 a ball. So for like £14, and the Filcolana comes in so many different colours. You could make yourself one of these. I've also got a couple of other yarns in stash that I want to make these with. I mentioned last week I got 3 skeins of Air Tier from Kate Davies Designs, particularly to make another one of these. So that, we'll see how that one goes. That's still on sale at Wool Warehouse for I think £3.99 a skein instead of £7.99 a skein. Full price, that's £21, £24, something like that, to make one of these, which is a bit more than I'd normally want to pay. Again, that is an alpaca wool blend, but when it's down at £3.99 a skein, that's £12. So that's much more doable. And then I've also got in my stash 1 single ball of Rerum Natura Gilead in the shade Merlot, I think it is. I've made a collar out of this already. It's not my favourite yarn. I thought I'd love it. I'd heard so many people talking about it, and I thought I'd love it, and I really wanted to try it. It's almost got this sort of felted feel to it, and I really don't like that texture. What it is, I don't like how it looks. It almost has like a dull matte look, and I really don't like that so much. So yeah, I prefer not, I don't think I'd use that again, honestly. And I think I'm probably the only person on the internet to say that. I don't think I'd use it again. and I think that was £15 a ball, but one of those balls is 250 metres, so I can get one of these out of that, and I'm going to try and do that because the colour is gorgeous, and it does make a nice collar because it's so felted. It almost gives like it almost felts to the other strands, if that makes sense. Wasn't my favourite to knit with, not my favourite the way it looks, but would create a really nice warm dense fabric across here, so it would probably make the warmest of the lot, I think, in terms of these. So yeah, this is where we're at. This will get finished eventually, but there's no deadline on this, so this is going to keep going, and I will be making 2 more additional afterwards. So if you're somebody that's in my life, be warned, you're probably going to get one of these as a gift for Christmas, because apparently I can't stop making them. So that's where we're at with that one. The other thing I mentioned last week that I talked about was some socks for my dad. Where's my sock blocker? I meant to bring that down. 2 seconds. Okay, sock blocker acquired. So I mentioned last time I was making some socks for my dad. I've made him a couple of pairs before, and he had requested another pair for his birthday, which is at the end of March. And I have finished the first sock. There is a gap. I've not woven the ends in yet, so there's a little gap there that I need to seam up, and another one there. But this is what we're looking like. I've shown you both sides because you can see they are not equal print on both sides. This is Drops Fable in the shade Drops Fable Long Print, I think is actually the official name of it, because I know Drops Fable comes in loads of solid colours, and I'm pretty certain the shade of this is actually Deep Ocean again. I will pop it on screen if I'm wrong. The white is just some leftovers of some woolly knit sock yarn I had. It's not really white, it's more of a cream, but it goes really nicely with these. And all I did was a 2x2 cuff for I think about 10 rounds, 14 rounds, and then I went into 3x1 rib. I do a 72 inch sock. Can you imagine? That would be massive. 72 stitch sock on 2.5mm needles, and I like to knit them on 9-inch short circulars. That's my preferred way. I started off magic loop. I don't like it as much anymore. I can't do DPNs. I hate DPNs. I find them really clunky. So magic loop or small circular is my jam, but small circular is my preference. And this is the first one done. It's been really nice, actually. This is really nice sock yarn. I really liked it. I really enjoyed working on it, and it's been really good for knitting, mindless knitting when I'm doing something else, basically. So I just pick it up and I knit. And I started on the second one. Where are we? Oh my god. And this is where we're at. So I was trying to track how much I'd knit in a day. Was that a while back? I haven't knit on this for about a week because I realised that this has a much longer deadline. This is the 29th of March, and my other 2 test knits need to be done before we go on holiday, which is early March. So this can be finished when we come back. But yeah, we are probably not. I'm probably about an inch, maybe 2 inches off starting the cuff. You can see there these patterns that appear. They're really nice, actually, and I've really, really enjoyed knitting it. So this is plodding along. And I've enjoyed knitting socks so much. Like I said, 9-inch small circulars. I think these are Chow Goose. They've got a red, definitely got a red thing, red cable. They might be Chow Goose. I don't remember because I've had them for years. So that's that one. I absolutely got the sock knitting bug, and I think I mentioned last time that sock knitting has been something that I've struggled with. I knit quite a lot of socks. Once I started knitting socks, I did knit quite a lot. I knit some for myself, I knit some for my mum, my dad, and I knit a load for my other half, and I burnt myself out on them. And I just lost interest in them. And then over the last couple of years, I think I've probably made a grand total of maybe 4 or 5 pairs of socks. The entire time I've made several single socks that have never had a partner to them. And then I've knit a few pairs. And I've enjoyed those ones for my dad so much that I wanted to lean into that. And I had a real urge to cast some other ones on. So I have. Where have they gone? Look at these. Oh my God. I love the colours. I had this sock yarn in stash for ages, and I didn't know what to do with it. So this is a self-striping again. If I put the back up, you can see the colours. This brown at the bottom is the contrast colour I've used for a heel. So that's not part of the stripe, but the rest is. This is some King Cole zigzag sock yarn. I'm pretty certain it's the shade Autumn Breeze. I'm also pretty certain that this colour is no longer made anymore because I couldn't find it. I really struggled to find this. I could be wrong, and if I am, I apologise. I'm sure this is like or the King Cole Zigzag comes in, the King Cole Zigzag comes in so many different colours. I've used this a few times for sock yarn, and it's really good. It's not as soft as the likes of this. This is definitely a bit softer. I should have said this is a 75-25 wool nylon sock yarn. This is also a 75-25 wool nylon sock yarn. For whatever reason, this is massively softer than this is. But they are perfectly fine as socks, and they do some really interesting patterns. There's one called Humbug that I've knit a pair of socks in before, that's blacks and greys and looks really lovely. And I've got another ball of that upstairs to make some socks for Christian at some point. But yeah, this one I think I'd bought as part of a load of sock yarn I got to make. What burnt me out of knitting socks was a couple of years back, 2020, probably 2021. I think 2021, maybe even 2020 actually. I decided I was going to knit my other half for his main present for his birthday. I was going to knit him like 6 pairs of socks. I think I mentioned last time he's got size 12 feet, so this is no mean feat. And I did, and I ordered loads of sock yarn, all in the same sort of colours. He really liked purples. I made some purple and cream ones. I made some blue ones, some black ones, things like that. And this I ordered at the same time because it has got loads of purples and things in it, but it arrived and it was just much more, almost 70s I thought, than I thought he would like. So I unravelled, and I didn't like the pattern I'd picked with it. It was a free pattern off Ravel that was intended for self-striping yarn, but I just didn't like it. So I unravelled it, and then this yarn has been sat in my stash ever since. Got the ball here to show you as well. It's been sat in my stash ever since, and I've just not known what to do with it. And I've said I'll get round to it one day, but I've not had sock mojo, so I haven't. And because I was enjoying those so much, I decided to cast these on. Now this is the heel toe do-si-do pattern by this crazy sock lady. This is not a free pattern, this is a paid for pattern. But it's intended particularly for self-striping yarn, and you use some increases and decreases and stuff like that to create this chevron pattern. And I love how this looks with self-striping yarn. I'm really glad I finally bit the bullet and bought it. I've wanted to buy this for ages, and I'm really glad I finally did, because this was like 2 nights of knitting. It was so fun. It's a 2-round repeat. It's so fun. And again, I've done 72 stitches on a 2.5mm short circular. This has, I think, again, 10 rounds of rib. This one is a twisted 1x1 rib. And then go into that. The one thing I will say, she recommends doing a deeper cuff, and I usually don't follow her instructions because I don't like a deeper cuff. I do a shallower one. However, I would say on the heel toe do-si-do, it might be worth it, because I don't know if you can see there, you've got a bit of a wobble at the top, because when you start doing these chevrons, it pushes the ribbing up a bit. Whereas if I'd done the deeper rib, I don't think you would have noticed that. So I would say, yeah, I would say do the deeper cuff. I love the sock ladies. I love the crazy sock ladies patterns. I would say I have her vanilla socks on 9-inch circulars pattern or magic loop, and I constantly refer back to that for numbers when I'm unsure of heel flaps and turns and things like that. What I will say is that is a paid for pattern, and I do not think, whilst it's been great, whilst I've referred back to it, I don't think you need a paid for pattern for something like for something basic like that. There are so many good free sock patterns that are the same thing online, and it's the same techniques, it's the same, you know, stitch counts, things like that, because they're fairly standard for socks. So I wouldn't go and buy one for a vanilla sock. I would find a recipe online, find a free pattern online, and then things like this where it is, you know, something particularly different. There's a chevron pattern on the front. Yeah, I like her patterns a lot, and she does some really nice ones. But yeah, really loving these. So quite a lot of work is going into these. Again, they've gone on hold for a little bit just because these were completely a fun project, and I've got deadlines that I need to talk about, I need to get working on. So yeah, but that is that everything? Yeah, that's everything I've been working on. That's all my whips. There's quite a lot. I'm just looking at it on the floor, scattered around me in front of you. It's been a good couple of weeks. It's been a positive couple of weeks. There was one acquisition I wanted to talk about. There's not been much in the way of acquisitions at all this week, and there won't be much coming up. But I did decide, for those of you who watch Jude Harper and their YouTube channel, they manage Stranded Dye Works, and Jude announced on their channel a couple of weeks back that they were going to be closing Stranded Dye Works. I've used one skein of Stranded Dye Works yarn before in a shawl, and I really loved it. I really loved it. It was a treat at the time, and I always sort of thought, oh, I'll go back and I'll do it again. And when they announced that they were going to be shutting down Stranded Dye Works and there was going to be one final shop update, I thought, right, I'm going to have to get something from that. Have to. I don't have to. I shouldn't use that term. I didn't have to get anything from there, but I really wanted to, especially given the fact that there weren't going to be anything more. This was going to be it. They were going to be closing down. So I set an alarm for the shop update, and I got myself one special skein. And I got it, I managed to get something that to me feels even more special because it's a one of a kind. So there was some skeins of, they have a colourway of paint box. And this was a one of a kind paint box. And I think that must be because it came out different than the normal pattern. It's really not showing up very well. I'm going to have to put a picture in because the colours are gorgeous. There's some bits under here that are really deep red. And then you've got some teals and some blues and some pinks and some purples, and it's just gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. This is a 72% kid mohair, 28% silk base. Say one of a kind paint box, one of a kind. This is all I got. I just got myself one special skein, and I have a vision for this. I have a vision. I have a dream. My thought is to do a cream raglan sweater and to, for the most part, hold a cream DK and a cream mohair with it, or fingering a mohair, maybe fingering. Kind of like the colour that I've got for my Alice sweater, which is in here. So kind of like this colour, an off-white, a cream, held with the cream mohair. And then with either across everywhere or just on the body, holding this instead of the cream mohair to make some big stripes. And I can't stop thinking about that. So that's what this is going to become. This is going to become a cream self-drafted, because I don't really self-draft very much and I'd like to get a bit better at it. Either drop shoulder. If I decide to do stripes all over the body, it'll be drop shoulder. But if I decide to just do them off after the yoke, it will be a raglan. With this held with the cream for the stripes. And yeah, I'm very excited about being able to use this and just, yeah, have a bit of a piece of history really. Jude's channel was one of the first that I ever watched. Those of you who watch their channel will know that they are trans, and I watched them, I was actually watching before they announced their transition. Those videos are no longer, I think they're all privated, they're no longer on there, and that's, you know, perfectly fine. But yeah, just a real soft spot. Having watched this just fantastically warm person go through all that, and then both of their parents passed away in the last couple of years, and going through that and approaching that with just a typical British sense of humour, actually. A bit of a dark sense of humour. And all the while doing this absolutely stunning yarn, and then making the decision to stop that to be able to go and do what they want to do with their life. I had to try and get a piece, and yeah, here we are. Very pleased with that. So that's all I've got to talk about in terms of projects and works and things that are going on. There's a couple of little bits to update you on, which are quite exciting. So the first one is I have never been to a yarn festival before. It feels like confession time. I've changed my position where I'm sitting as well, so it feels like I'm, never have I ever. I've never been to a yarn festival before, and this year I very much wanted to go. My other half was keen that we do as well, because we go to things for his hobby from time to time, and he said, well, we should go to one for yours. So we had a bit of a look, and all that to say, I have booked tickets for me and him. He's going to come with me, but for us to go to the Woolly Good Gathering in Edinburgh. There are closer ones to me, probably, but there aren't, unless I'm missing it, there aren't massive ones around here, massive amounts of ones. So there is Buxton Wool Gathering and Bakewell Wool Gathering, both of which are fairly close, but they're still a couple of hours away. Particularly Buxton is best part of 2 hours from here. There's one in York, which would be doable. And I think there's going to be one in Leeds. Somebody talked about that. When I'd looked that up, when we looked at going to one, I couldn't find anything about it being on this year. So I'd sort of written that one off. And I'd seen loads of people posting about the Woolly Good Gathering. I really like the sort of, that it's a new festival and they've chosen to set it up themselves. And also we love Edinburgh. So I have booked tickets to go on the Friday. We're going to go up probably a couple of days before. The dogs are going to come with us. They're not going to come with us to the yarn festival, obviously. It would be just chaos. And I know, obviously, they're not going to be allowed in. The dogs are going to come with us on the holiday. My other half's going to come. We're going to work from home in the Airbnb for a couple of days or wherever we book. And then we'll go to the yarn festival, have the weekend there, come back. So all that to say, if you're going, please feel free to let me know down below. I would love to bump into people there. I've never been. I'm very excited. I'm excited to, I'm going to go with a bit of a budget. I do want to get some stuff. I don't know what I want to get yet, but I want to go with a bit of a plan. But if you go in, let me know down below. Let me know what days you're going on. We're going on the Friday. If you see me while we're there, come say hi. I might be awkward as anything because I'm naturally quite an introverted person, believe it or not. So yeah, if I'm awkward, I'm sorry, but please come and say hi if you're there and you see me. And if you're going, let me know. I'd love to know who's going as well. The other thing to add, I haven't even alluded, I've out and out mentioned a couple of times that shortly we're going on a holiday. So we're going on, I think so in a couple of weeks, we are going for a long awaited holiday. We're going to Poland. We've been to Poland a couple of times. We're flying into Krakow. We go across to, I'm going to pronounce this wrong. I think it's Wrocław. We would call it Wrocław in the UK, but I'm certain that's not right. I also know Krakow isn't right. That's not how you pronounce it in Poland. But we're flying in there. We're going across to Wrocław. We then go across into Prague and we spend a few days there. And then we come back to Krakow and spend a couple of days there before we fly home. I can't wait. We love Poland. We've never been to Prague, but we're very excited. And we are, the reason I'm telling you about it is because we're there for quite a bit. It's quite a long holiday. It's like 11 days, something like that. And we are completely travelling as light as we possibly can. We have a rucksack each and that's it. So there will be no knitting coming with me and there will be no yarn shops or rather there just isn't space. There just isn't space. So there will be a bit of a break. What I'm thinking I will do is film just before we go so that one's up and you can have a bit of an update. And then what I'll do when we come back is probably film something a bit different than a podcast because there will be a big chunk where there's no knitting in there. So what I thought I would do, I've got a couple of ideas to do things like a what I knit in a week and actually maybe doing some finish these projects with me kind of videos because once I've got these two test knits gone. So one of them, the Leo's cable sweater is due a couple of days after we come back. And the Irene sweater is due a couple of days after we go. So that needs to be completed before we go. And really, the Leos, I need to get mostly completed before we go as well, because I'm not going to have a lot of time when we come back to be able to finish an entire sweater. So once I come back, I'm going to have fairly clear needles. There's a test net that I need to cast on. I've swatched for. The Zephyr pullover by Knits again, Emily Chen. I love her designs. So I'm testing it for her as well. I need to get that cast on. I probably will get that cast on before we go, so you might well see it on the next episode. But I'm not going to properly be working on that until we come back. And I thought what I'd either do is, because I've got those clearer needles, maybe do a bit of a combo of what I knit in a week and also finish some stuff with me. Try and get things like my little crystals that's nearly there, my work knit shawl that just needs an applied I-cord, the pairs of socks and things like that. Just try and get a few things finished. And then go back into the normal podcast format. So the next video you'll see will be another traditional podcast. And then after that, there will be a couple of slightly different videos. So if they sound interesting and you're interested to see, probably a little bit of footage as well from Prague and from Poland. Like I say, no yarn shops. We're not going to go do any tours or anything like that. But I will probably put in a little bit of footage because I suspect they're probably all going to be beautiful places. Krakow we know is. And obviously Prague, you know, I've not been, but I know it's stunning. So I'll put in a little bit of footage from there. And then, yeah, if you want to be notified of those videos, of when I do another podcast, of when we do the what I knit in a week, things like that, feel free to drop a like and a subscribe. It is really, really nice to see the subscription numbers growing. I've really enjoyed doing this and sharing this with everybody. So the appreciation I get back from you guys really, really helps. And I hope you come back and watch it again. That is all I have to say today. We have had no special guest today. He is fast asleep on a chair just down here. Normally, he is quite upset with the fact that I'm talking to somebody that isn't him and he has to come and investigate. Apparently this time, this is normal now, so I'm just going to sleep. What it is they both quite like the new sofa. It's very comfortable, so they're fast asleep on that. So no special guest this time. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. We've made some good progress on things. Next time I come to speak to you, The Irene will definitely be done. It needs to be done. There's no way it can't be because it needs to be handed in. That's the back. Good start. It needs to be handed in before I go away. So that needs to be done. The Leo sweater needs to be pretty much done as well. Realistically, I've probably got enough time when we come back to finish a sleeve. But the rest needs to be done. So I hope by next time to have the body, the neck and yoke and everything and one sleeve done. And then the other stuff is probably, let's be honest, going to go on hold a little bit, other than maybe some crochet projects here and there to give my hands a bit of a break whilst I work on these two. So those are the aims for next time I'm here. These two will be finished or thereabouts. That will be thereabouts. That will be finished. And we'll probably have some crochet stuff as well. Yeah, so that's everything for today. Thank you very much for watching. I feel like I've been a bit waffly, so apologies if I have. Thank you for being here. I hope to see you on the next one. I hope you've had a lovely day. I hope you've got some good progress on whatever you've been working on, or if you're not working on anything, I hope you've just had a bit of time to chill and relax and spend some time with me. But thank you very much for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye.